All right, welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today we're diving into some really practical stuff for you guys out there learning English.
Yeah, today we're going to be looking at 30 words specifically chosen from the Oxford 5000 Group 50.
Yeah, these are going to be super useful for intermediate learners.
Definitely going to help boost your vocabulary.
Exactly. So basically our mission today is just to make sure that you understand these words and feel confident using them in your own speaking and writing.
That's it. So let's jump right into our first word, which is receiver.
Okay, receiver.
So receiver actually has a couple of meanings, but the first one, think about a phone, the part that you hold up to your ear. That's the receiver.
Okay, got it.
So, for example, I couldn't hear clearly because the receiver was faulty.
Right.
So, but it also refers to a person who receives something.
Oh, good.
So she was the lucky receiver of the grand prize.
I see.
And then in a business context, a receiver can be a person appointed to manage the finances of a company, especially if the company's in trouble. So, for example, the company appointed a receiver to manage its finances.
Got it. Okay. So moving on then, our next word is recession.
Recession.
And this is a word we hear quite a bit, especially in economic news.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's basically when a country's economy isn't doing very well. So, for example, many businesses closed during the economic recession.
Right.
And you also hear experts talking about recessions. Experts are predicting a mild recession next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then something else you often hear associated with recession is job losses. So job losses are a common feature of a recession.
Okay, so the next word we have is recipient. And it sounds very similar to receiver, but I'm guessing the usage is a little different.
Yeah, recipient usually refers to a person who receives something.
Okay.
So, for example, the recipient of the award gave a moving speech.
Right, I see.
Or please write the recipient's address clearly on the envelope.
Makes sense.
And, when it comes to charities, they talk about the people who are receiving aid as recipients. The charity ensures that aid reaches the intended recipients.
Got it. Okay. So our next word is reckon. And this is a word that I think English learners might be a little less familiar with. It's kind of like a more informal way of saying think or believe.
Exactly.
Like, I reckon it's going to rain later.
Yeah. Or, do you reckon they'll win the game?
Okay.
And one more. She's a talented artist, I reckon.
Got it. All right, let's move on to recognition.
Recognition.
So this word has a couple of different meanings.
Yeah, so the first one is just the act of knowing who or what something is. So, for example, I didn't get any recognition for my hard work.
Right.
But it can also mean kind of like official acceptance or approval. So the country gained international recognition. And then more simply, it can just be like you recognize someone, right?
Yeah.
She showed no recognition of her former classmate.
Right. Okay, reconstruction. So this is a word that clearly involves building something again after it's been damaged or destroyed.
Yes, exactly. So the reconstruction of the bridge took several months.
Makes sense.
Or you could say, after a war or a natural disaster, the city faced a long period of reconstruction.
Yeah.
And, archaeologists work on reconstructing things like temples. Archaeologists are working on the reconstruction of an ancient temple.
Right, yeah. Okay, so our next word is recount. And I think this is another one that maybe has a couple of different meanings.
It does. So the first one is just to tell somebody about something that happened. So let me recount what happened at the meeting.
Right.
But it can also mean to count something again.
Oh.
And this is often in like an official context. So the election results were so close, they ordered a recount.
Right, of course.
And then, people recount their experiences as well. He recounted his adventures in the jumble.
I see. Okay, next up we've got recovery. And this is a word I think that can apply to a lot of situations where things get better, whether it's health, economy, or even just finding something that was lost.
Absolutely. So, talking about health, her recovery from surgery was quick.
Right.
Talking about the economy is showing signs of recovery. And then, finding something, the recovery of the lost documents took several days.
Okay, makes sense. So we've got two words that are obviously linked here. Recruit and recruitment.
Right. So recruit is the verb, to find new people to join a company, an organization, the armed forces, etc. So the company is trying to recruit new graduates.
Right.
They are planning to recruit more volunteers for the project. And then, the classic one, the army needs to recruit more soldiers.
Right, yeah.
And then recruitment, of course, is just the process of doing that. So the company's recruitment process is very thorough.
Right.
You might see signs for something like this. There's a recruitment fair next week for local businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then recruitment can be challenging in a competitive job market.
For sure, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the role of a referee.
So in sports, the referee is the person in charge of the game, makes sure the rules are followed.
Right, exactly.
So the referee blew his whistle to stop the game. The players argued with the referee about the penalty.
Right, yeah.
And then who will be the referee for the final match?
Okay. So next up is referendum.
Referendum. So this is a vote by the people of a country or an area on a particular question. So a referendum was held on the issue of independence.
Okay, yeah.
Or the government decided to hold a referendum, and the results of the referendum were very close.
Right. Okay. Reflection. So this is a word that I think has both kind of a visual meaning and a mental meaning.
Right. Yeah. So visually, it's just, the image of something in a mirror or on a shiny surface or in water. So I could see my reflection in the window.
Yeah.
But it also means careful thought about something. So after much reflection, I decided to resign. And then you could say the calm lake offered a perfect reflection of the mountains.
Right. I see. So reform is our next word. And this kind of suggests that you're making improvements by making changes to something.
Exactly. So to reform is to improve something. So the government is planning to reform the education system.
Okay.
And then the changes themselves are reforms.
Right.
So these reforms aim to make the company more efficient.
Got it.
And then there is a need for legal reform in this area.
Right, yeah. Okay, so we've got refuge and refugee, two words that are clearly related and have to do with seeking safety.
Exactly. So refuge is shelter or protection from danger or trouble. So the storm forced many people to seek refuge.
Right.
The old church offered a refuge for the homeless, and they found refuge in a neighboring country.
Okay.
And then a refugee is a person who has been forced to leave their country because of war, persecution, or a natural disaster. So many refugees have crossed the border seeking safety. The camp provides shelter and food for the refugees.
Yeah.
And she worked to help refugees rebuild their lives.
Okay, so next we have refusal. And that's pretty straightforward, just saying no to a request or an offer.
Exactly. So her refusal to cooperate surprised everyone.
Right.
He issued a firm refusal to their demands. And we received a polite refusal to our invitation.
Right. Okay, regain. To get something back that you've lost.
Right. So she is slowly regaining her strength after the illness.
Okay.
The team fought hard to regain the lead. And he hopes to regain his former position in the company.
Right. Okay. Regardless. So basically, this means without paying attention to something or in spite of something?
Right. So regardless of the weather, the event will go ahead. He continued talking, regardless of my protests.
Yeah, yeah.
And everyone is welcome, regardless of their background.
Okay. So our next word is regime. And I think this often refers to a ruling power, like a government.
It does. So the military regime was overthrown in a coup, but it can also be a planned system of doing things. So he started a strict exercise regime, and the old regime was known for its corruption.
Okay, so registration. This is basically the act of putting your name and details on an official list for something.
Yeah, registration for the course closes next week.
Okay.
You will need to complete the registration form. And there is a fee for vehicle registration.
Right. So regulate, the verb, is to control something by using rules.
Right. So the government needs to regulate pollution more effectively.
Okay.
Traffic lights regulate the flow of vehicles. And this device helps to regulate the room temperature.
Got it. Okay. And a regulator then is a person or an organization who makes sure that those rules are followed.
Yes. So the financial regulator is investigating the bank.
Right.
The new safety standards were introduced by the regulator.
Mm-hmm.
And regulators play a crucial role in protecting consumers.
Right, yeah. So then regulatory is the adjective describing anything that's related to the rules and the enforcement of those rules.
Right. So the company needs to comply with all regulatory requirements.
Okay.
There have been some regulatory changes in the banking sector,
Mm-hmm.
and they face a complex regulatory environment.
Okay, rehabilitation. So this means helping someone return to a normal life after they've been ill, in prison, or something like that.
Right. So he is undergoing rehabilitation after his surgery.
Okay.
The program focuses on the rehabilitation of offenders.
Uh-huh.
And it can also mean to restore something to its former condition. So there are plans for the rehabilitation of the historic building.
Right. Okay. So reign, this is the period during which a king or queen or other monarch rules.
Exactly. So Queen Victoria's reign lasted for over 60 years.
Okay.
During his reign, the country experienced a period of peace, and the end of the emperor's reign marked a new era.
Right. Okay. So reinforce means to make something stronger, whether it's a physical object or even an idea.
Yeah, so these extra supports will reinforce the building structure.
Okay.
The speaker used examples to reinforce his point.
Right.
And positive feedback can reinforce good behavior.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Rejection. So this is the act of not accepting something.
Right. So she was disappointed by the rejection of her application.
Okay.
The proposal faced strong rejection from the committee, and he couldn't hide his sadness at the rejection.
Right. Okay. So relevance is how important something is to a particular topic or discussion.
Exactly. So the information has no relevance to this discussion.
Right.
The relevance of his experience to the job is clear.
Uh-huh.
And we need to consider the relevance of these findings.
Okay. And finally, we have reliability, which is the quality of being able to be trusted or depended on.
Right. So the reliability of the internet connection is crucial for our work.
Yeah.
We need to ensure the reliability of our data.
Uh-huh.
And the car is known for its reliability.
Okay, great. Well, we've really, dug deep into these 30 words.
We have. From the Oxford 5000.
Exactly. So hopefully now you guys listening have a good understanding of them.
Absolutely. And I think, the best thing to do now is to review these, look at the examples again and really try to incorporate them into your English.
Yeah, I think that's really the key to making them stick. So think about which of these words you can immediately start using to express yourself more effectively in English.
Yeah, good point.
So until next time, on a deep dive.
See you later.